All right. Well, thank you again. I think this is my first time presenting here. My name's Sid. I've been on our team now for I think 7 years. I started off in FLL for 1 year, and then I've been in FLL or FTC, excuse me, for the last 5 years. I do a lot of our outreach stuff as well as I've been on the drive team for the last 4 years. So I really get a good in terms of judging and the robot game, I get a good amount of what we have to do at the qualifier. So today we just put together something about what are you supposed to do at the qualifier in terms of where to assign kids and where to put kids and team members who have certain strengths in the certain places to maximize your efficiency and overall quality of the qualifier so everyone can enjoy it. Yeah. So I think one of the first thing is, like I said, is like during a qualifier, each team member should be assigned a role, right? You don't want like 40 people in the stands and you don't want 40 people in the pit. There's like an equilibrium point where you want to be that you have team members watching robots and you have team members in the pit ready to answer questions. So like it says on the slide, right? You want to prevent overcrowding in the pit. You also want to make sure that the qualifier, right, at the qualifier, everyone's having a good mix of, working hard and, judging, but also enjoying yourself and like having fun, meeting new people and kind of spreading that first ethos, if that kind of makes sense. So moving on, the first one is you always want to have someone who is quote unquote the pit director. With rookie teams especially, this should be something that you should assign before the qualifier, and this should probably be someone who has maybe experience setting up a booth, or just is very vocal and they can be a leader in a sense. Because in the morning when you come to the qualifier, you're gonna have about 3 hours to get a lot of things done. The first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do robot inspection, then turn in all your documentation, get ready for judging, and also set up your pit. So I would probably have the pit director make sure that you guys beforehand have a list of everything that you need for your pit, whether it be like a table or like a banner, if you want to display your awards, somewhere to charge your batteries, just a general checklist of things to bring to the qualifier and have those loaded in on a checklist, either digitally or on paper beforehand. And then also on the day of the qualifier, the pit director should be really, really focused on making sure that there are a certain number, 2 to 3 people, that are occupying the pit at a certain time. And you also want to make sure that those 2 to 3 people are not all on the drive team or all on outreach, because then if a robot judge comes for 3 outreach kids, they're not going to answer the best to the best of their ability as the team can. It might not represent the work of your team. So that's just a little thing. So the pit director's job is really important because I like to think of it as how the team is getting represented to other teams, to parents, to other students, and also to the judges, as that's most likely, aside from direct judging, is going to be most of the judges' first impression of your team. So first impressions are lasting. So kind of think of it like that. Moving on, then the scouting team. So the scouting team is very important for the robot game specifically, and this is going to be directed straight at the robot. So for those of you who might not know what scouting is or what herd of scouting is, it's more or less, right, you're just looking at what other teams can do. How many specimens can they do in autonomous? How many specimens can they do in teleop? Are they a bucket team? What are their auto capabilities? So that when you get to playoff times, and if you are picking or if you are picked, you can talk to and work with other teams to create that best alliance. And this year, with the advancement criteria, it's the winning alliance captain in their first pick. So scouting is all the more important. So on the scout team, you should have a lead scout. So this person, again, is going to have to do some work before the competition. Some things they might need to do is compile a list of all the teams that are attending the competition, put it into a spreadsheet or a document, digitalize it. As well as they should, by the end of the day, be the person who is giving or is making the selection about who they want to be the partner if you are in the position to select. And then on that, you need to have 2 to 4 scouts. Usually, I think 2 is going to stretch people thin, but 4 will do them justice, because then you can have 2 people at each field 1 and field 2, watching at least then you can be watching 2 robots per match. And you can get the best data for each team. And one thing many people confuse about, and our team really hasn't started doing this until the last couple of years, is we used to think that scouting is only meant for the day of competition, and then people kind of forget about it and you restart at your next competition. One thing, especially as newer teams and rookie teams, that you can do is you can keep this as like a database for your own team. So like if you scout at our qualifier and then next year you're scouting similar teams at another qualifier, right? I guess you can apply this next year in the earlier on, but you can keep that scouting data to see how teams progress and see their consistency. So scouting is a really big thing at our qualifier and any qualifier, as if you are in that position to pick, it's really important to pick that team that aligns with you and not just like second place if you're in first, because that might not always align best with you. And so really senior teams, you'll see sometimes don't just select the highest ranked team, but rather you'll go back and see they choose the team that fits with them the best. So scouting, really the motto is fit over rank. And in order to achieve that, you need to have people watching the matches and documenting the matches. Moving on, you have the drive team. So the drive team is completely pre-decided. Obviously, you're going to have at least 1 to 2 drivers who are going to be driving your robot. I would always recommend having a drive coach with newer teams and younger teams. Sometimes you see the drive coach being a mentor like Mr. Newstead or someone else. But if you can, I would always recommend having a student, as sometimes the pressure is less than, and it's also easier to communicate in that sense, and can kind of keep the vibes there better, because it can get stressful sometimes. Especially like I know the feeling as the drive coach about how the drivers can feel as like they feel the whole robot, the whole season's on their backs, and it is sometimes. So being there can be great, not only for advice in the game, but just to be a calming presence. And then also you should have a human player. You should always have a human player just in case the other team doesn't, or if you're doing the specimen side in this year's game. But next year it'll be something else that you'll have to have a human player. So the drive team at minimum will be 3 people, or at two will be at 3 people, excuse me. But at maximum will be 4, and that's per the rules. So just make sure that throughout the day, you know that who the drive team is. And for the pit director and the scouting, obviously you can't have the drive team or the pit director have them be in the pit or scouting a lot, because they're going to be driving and they're going to be queuing and charging the batteries, putting in new batteries. So kind of think of it like that. But also one thing for the scout team is that the drive team will also be doing scouting as they're playing the games and watching. So just remember the drive team is very high volume, and they're gonna be very active throughout the day. So they might be stressed, they might be a lot of pressures on them throughout the competition. So just make sure that you can offload of some of that with getting the pit set up while they're doing robot inspection or doing judging, or just kind of be conscious of that. Yeah, so the next one is communication. So we broke down the qualifier into 3 big things, right? The pit director, the scouting team, and the drive team. So for communication, I think one of the biggest things for us, even as a team, when we're at World, State, or any qualifier, is just being able to get the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's half of being at a qualifier. It's not necessarily being the most prepared team or being the best team. It's just being how cohesive is truly your team. Like, how well of a team are you going to be? There's 4 people fixing the robot. There's another 4 people in the stands. There's 4 people eating lunch, right? Everyone's in different places. Usually the cell signal, believe it or not, is not going to be good in some places. But it's hard. And also, like, you can't just call someone because it's very noisy. There's a lot going on. So making sure that you can communicate with people. A group chat is a great way to do it, whether it's on iMessage or like Band or Signal or even Slack. If there's some way that everyone can have notifications that's direct and that everyone is in there, it would be really helpful for mentors and also from the students. So like you can text, like the drive team needs a new battery, they can text someone, can I get a new battery, right? Instead of calling or having to go get it themselves, right? It's just going to be make it a lot easier, because it's going to get very chaotic at the qualifier, believe it or not. And you'll experience that for the first time. And if you have already, you understand that feeling of like there's like literally zero downtime, even during lunch. The only time is really towards the end at awards. So communication is really key, because it's not necessarily about being the best team, right? It's just about being the best version of your team, but also like being in the right places at the right time. And then further role, there's like some miscellaneous roles that, might need to double up depending on how many people on your team, right? If you have 15 people on your team, it will be very easy to fill this. But if you have 8 to 9, some people might have to double up, or a mentor might have to help out. For the load in and load out coordinator, this is just someone, if you have a team van or if a parent drives or if there's a bus, right? Who's getting all of the stuff on that bus? Who's helping, getting people to help out with that, if that kind of makes sense. And then also on the way back, who's making sure everything you brought is also, leaving, or there's a justifiable reason, like for food or like a part that you have, there's some memory of what happened to those things that you brought in. So keeping as much parts and like just, don't forget your driver station or your controllers. A food coordinator, every team does this differently depending on school rules. For our team, we usually have a parent who volunteers and brings food to a competition. Sometimes you guys might bring food the day before, or you might just individually go and get concessions. So make sure that the team knows that and that that's communicated ahead, because, people get hungry and then no one wants to deal with hungry team members or hangry team members. Also the safety monitor, I think the safety monitor would be a great position for a mentor or a more senior member or someone on the drive team because making sure that you have safety glasses on as well as just, not running around doing anything really rambunctious or going to get you in trouble. More than that, but just being safe, right? Like little things like again, safety glasses, and just not touching robots while they're active and just making sure that nothing like no fingers are cut or anyone's eyes are hurt permanently, just making sure of that. And we always some teams and some people like throughout the stress of the day and the busyness you can forget about that, so just having someone who can remind people about that, for the not just for like first but just for the betterment of the safety of the competition. And then another role is some people have the space for a photographer. Usually there's someone who always wants to step up and do this. This is great for one, documentation for your future qualifiers, as well as just general overall memories that you can keep through your team. And I know we have a big emphasis on photos because now we can look back as some of us are seniors and like really reflect on our journey with our team and like the friends we've made along the journey. Yeah, so that's really what we did. So at this time, if anyone has any questions, students or mentors, again, we kind of broke it down into three big team roles, right? The drive team, scouting team, and then the pit director. And then obviously you'll have judging and stuff, but that's a whole team activity. So that's what we had for team qualifier roles. So if anyone has any questions or comments, our team, as well as myself, would be more than willing to answer them.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So for the pit director, do they stay at the pits at all times or are they allowed to move around?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. No, the pit directors don't need to stay at the pit the whole time, and they most likely won't. But what they need to do is they just need to make sure that like if they're saying person A, B, and C need to be at the pit at 9 a.m. and person C isn't at the pit, they need to find person C and make sure that they're at the pit at 9, and they need to make the schedule. And they could be at the pit for a certain period, and then they could rotate out. You usually have rotations. I should have probably mentioned that. So they can put themselves in a rotation, but they don't need to be there the whole day for sure. If they want to, they obviously can, but I don't think most teams, or I know our team for sure, we don't have our pit director in the pit all day.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we emphasize, to make one more comment, we emphasize the pit director role because, the pit should be someplace fun. It's a creative place to convey information about your team, kind of collect and be central. But another huge role of the pit is to convey information to other teams and as a place to interact with judges and engage judges and talk with them. So if your pit's a mess and, there's nothing identifies you as, your team there, there's nobody there, the judges show up, where is everybody? You just really lose opportunities for really good interactions, with the judges. So have fun with the pit. You can make it your own, but just realize there's a really important role of making sure there's some minimum number of people there all the time, and that, when a judge shows up, there's a way to get your team there quickly so you can continue the conversation. And it really is something that should represent your team um, during the whole qualifier.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my team is very, very new. We just started like a few months ago, and they all speak Spanish. They don't speak English. So I was wondering if we are gonna get some help as far as translation is concerned.
We can talk about that. I think we do have one or two speaking people with our parents, Sid. Um, so we'll do our best with that, and I'll ask around, Pauline. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to visit. One foundation of First is this, gracious professionalism and being as accommodating as you can to everyone. So we'll do our best with a qualifier to help out and make sure we identify some folks who can be in that kind of role with you, and make sure that the folks that are queuing and in judging and such are we can provide somebody to help there. Okay.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, good. Well, thank you for the gearheads for wrapping this up. We didn't mean to make the team roles so formal that it's a burden on the team or that it comes across as not being fun, right? But there is a lot to do at a qualifier, and I think if you have a little bit of a plan for who's going to do what, everybody can relax and settle into their roles, and it won't seem quite as quite as confusing or quite as overwhelming if folks have a little bit of an idea of dividing up tasks for the team and doing that. And a big part of the rookie qualifiers and with the skirmish in Brookfield, I think, is to provide that experience, but also provide a little bit of extra help. So pause any of the Gearhead team members or anyone else that's volunteering and ask questions along the way. With qualifiers, we're trying to make a experience that is, like a standard qualifier so that everybody gets to learn, but also is really open to folks engaging and having some experiences for the first time. So, all right, very good. We will publish this and send an email out tomorrow with it as a resource you can share with your team. And then our last webinar, next Thursday evening, will give you some insights into preparing for a qualifier. How do you pack? What do you need to bring? What some of the basic logistics are, so it's just a little bit easier to get to the qualifier and know what you need to do, and in some insights into that. That should be a straightforward conversation. And again, not meant to give you more to do, but just to give you some ideas about things you have to think about and how you might want to organize the team and getting everything you need for the qualifier there. Okay. Any other questions at the last minute? Otherwise, we'll end there.
So next Thursday is going to be same time, right?
Same time, and I'll send out an email with a Zoom link for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I invite my other mentor?
You can invite anybody you'd like to. Absolutely, for
Okay.
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right. Very good. Thank you. Have a good evening, folks. Appreciate the team putting this together. Bye now.